what is better, Matterport or its competitors? In this video, I'll compare Matterport with the 5 platforms that are most similar to it, because there are countless virtual tour softwares out there and a lot of them would say they're an alternative to Matterport, but in reality, they're better suited to other things, such as retail, hospitality, e-commerce, and so on. So I did have to be picky in this video and choose the platforms that had the most Matterport-like experience. So if you're considering Matterport, or considering swapping from Matterport to another platform, then this is probably the most detailed comparison you'll find online. Okay, so what makes a platform Matterport-like? Well, the first thing is it needs to be 3D focused. Most virtual tour platforms offer a conventional 360 experience inside the virtual tour where you move around from 360 photo to 360 photo. Whereas with Matterport, it focuses on 3D and combining that with 360. So it's not only capturing a 360 photo, but it's also capturing depth and the distance from the camera to the wall, from the wall to the objects in the room. And from capturing that 3D data, you can also achieve some pretty cool things, like having a floor plan that's created automatically, like having measurements within that floor plan that are roughly 98% accurate. And the biggest one, or the most widely known one, is the Dollhouse. Now, whether you think the Dollhouse is a gimmick or not, the cool factor is undeniable. The Dollhouse presents the 3D space in a way that allows you to interact with it from every single angle, so you can truly see the size and scale of the location you've shot, which is such a handy feature, especially for real estate. And I would say the Dollhouse is the quintessential Matterport feature. Another essential feature of Matterport is having the tours built for you. You barely need to do any editing later on. All the photos are connected together and the 3D depth map is generated automatically. It needs to be available internationally, so not focusing on just one single region. The final 2 Matterport-like features are it's real estate focused and it's got a quick and easy workflow. So of the 100+ virtual tour platforms out there, this narrows down the field quite considerably, I would argue, to 6 softwares, including Matterport. And while all the others have their own strengths, and I cover many of them on my channel already, so if you're not focusing on real estate and you don't care about 3D tours, I would suggest checking those ones out. But if you are interested in 3D, let's get to the candidates. Firstly, I want to give honorable mentions to a few softwares that almost made the list. The first one is Everpano, which is related to KRPano, which is a really advanced virtual tour software. In fact, I would say it's too advanced. Also, it doesn't have the ability to build the tours for you. VPix 360 is another good one. However, they've recently shifted their focus away from the B2C market and are working solely with B2B, meaning it won't be a consumer-friendly software anymore. Next runner-up is Zillow 3D because they are a US only company right now. Also, they're pretty early on in their virtual tour creation software development. So while they're not a direct Matterport competitor now, they may be in the future. TourBuzz is a great Matterport alternative. However, they're only currently focusing on the North American market. The final 3 runners-up are Qpix, iGuide, and Inside Maps, all of which are great real estate focused platforms, but don't offer a Dollhouse and a few of the other quintessential Matterport features. Many people do consider these softwares to be genuine Matterport alternatives, which I do as well. However, I don't see them quite on the level of the softwares I will be comparing in this video. To learn more about these and other 3D focused real estate virtual tour platforms, I'd suggest joining the We Get Around Network forum. It's free to join and has a ton of great info. I'll link it below. Okay, so the 5 platforms that are the most similar to Matterport that I'll be comparing in this video with Matterport are Metareal, and I've already made a video on my channel. You've probably seen that. However, at the time I made it, it was the only Matterport alternative that I was really aware of. And I later discovered that it wasn't the only one, nor the best. Then we have Asteroom, iSpy 360, Immoviewer, and newcomer Pivo Tour. And this one's a brand new platform that could potentially revolutionize Matterport shooting. But let's just wait until the end before we make any claims like that. Now, this video is not sponsored by any of these companies. It is, however, a brand new video I'm adding to my paid Virtual Tour Pro course, and also giving for free to my loyal YouTube subscribers. Once you've watched this video and chosen the right virtual tour platform for you, and you want to start earning money with virtual tours, I'd strongly suggest enrolling in the course because it teaches the entire business plan for not only getting started as a virtual tour photographer from scratch, but also building and scaling a profitable business out of it. I'll link that down below. Now I'm going to break this comparison up into 2 parts. Part 1 will be a features comparison, Part 2 will be a pricing comparison. These two factors hold all the weight when choosing a long-term software option for your virtual tour business, which is why it's a really important one. And I'm going to do my best to cover these two things in as much detail as I possibly can. And if there's anything I missed, there probably will be, let me know down below. All right, so let's start with features. And I'm going to rate these 6 softwares on 17 key factors that cover shooting, editing, and how professional the end result looks when using these platforms. I'm not going to mention the basics like does it have hotspots, because all softwares have the basics. Instead, I want to focus on the most unique features of these platforms. I'm going to give each software 1 point for every feature it has. So we're going to start with shooting virtual tours, and the first useful feature is having a mobile app. Can you access the software through their own app on your phone, whether you're on iPhone or Android? There's no question it's handy when you can upload the photos directly from your phone as you're shooting. Starting with Matterport, yes, it does have a mobile app. It used to be iOS only, but they did recently release an Android app. It has mixed reviews in the Play Store, but nonetheless, it has an app for both platforms. Metareal doesn't, and it relies on you uploading photos manually through your internet browser. Asteroom does. It's got a good app for iPhone and Android. iSpy 360 has no app, unfortunately. Immoviewer has an app, but it's only for iPhone, nothing for Android. I think they used to have something, but it's now been taken down, so I'm only going to give them half a point. Finally, Pivo Tour does have a mobile app. Next category is, can you use a smartphone? And this is the most basic way to shoot a virtual tour, but nonetheless an important one for anyone that wants a super fast turnaround on their tours. And with Matterport you absolutely can. Metareal you can't, since it doesn't have its own app. Asteroom you can. iSpy 360 you can't, again because it doesn't have a mobile app. Immoviewer doesn't seem to have that feature in their app, and it seems like their app was last updated over a year ago. In fact, it also seems like their entire website isn't updated very often. So I don't know really how active Immoviewer is, but regardless, I'm going to keep grading it because technically they are still open for business. Finally, Pivo Tour does allow you to shoot with a smartphone. In fact, this is the only way to shoot with Pivo Tour. And it's also worth noting that of the 3 platforms that do allow you to use a phone, both Pivo Tour and Asteroom require you to use their hardware, which is basically a smartphone 360 rotator, which is designed for really good stitching. Whereas with Matterport, they let you do it handheld, and somehow the stitching looks okay from the tours I've seen. So with Asteroom and Pivo Tour, it's going to be an extra $100 cost roughly in order to get your own smartphone rotator, and those are compulsory. You can't shoot handheld. Next, can you use a 360 camera? So we're moving up with our production quality. If you're someone that doesn't want to shoot on a phone, but you also don't want to shoot on a high-end camera, then a 360 camera is going to be a great alternative. And with Matterport, yes, you can shoot with a range of cameras from Insta360 and Ricoh. With Metareal, since it's an online SaaS software, you upload any photos you like shot on any device. Same with Asteroom. Likewise with iSpy 360 and Immoviewer, you can upload your photos manually, which means you can use any 360 camera. Pivo Tour, however, since it is a smartphone setup, right now they don't have an option to use a 360 camera. The next feature is having the ability to easily download and upload photos manually. So if you're someone that cares about your image quality and you like downloading photos, editing them in Photoshop, Lightroom, or Affinity Photo, and then uploading them to your virtual tour platform, this will be an important feature for you. And unfortunately with Matterport, they have never had the ability to do this. When you shoot with Matterport, it gets uploaded straight to the Matterport server and you can't upload photos manually. It does try its best to get the best image quality possible, whether you're using a phone, a 360 camera, or the Matterport Pro 2 camera. However, still it's not going to be on the level of a professionally edited image. With all the other platforms, however, you can manually upload images after downloading, color correcting, and then re-uploading. The next essential feature, which was actually one of the qualifiers for making this list, is does this software offer the ability to build it for you? And I'm happy to say all 6 softwares have this feature. With Matterport, it's free. With the others, it's paid, and that is part of their overall pricing model. I'll discuss pricing models in a lot of depth later on in this video, but for now it's good news all around. They all have the ability to build the tours for you, so you don't have to yourself. Category number 6 is quick processing. So once you get these platforms to build it for you, how long does it take them to put the tour together and send you a link? So based off of what these platforms describe themselves as the turnaround time, as well as me reaching out to a few of them, I found the results were very different. And with Matterport, they say the average turnaround time is less than 8 hours, and I found that to be accurate. In fact, with smaller tours, sometimes they even take an hour or two, so that's definitely a good feature of Matterport. With Metareal, they say 2 to 3 working days, and that is a really long time. In fact, you basically couldn't shoot with Metareal unless you had a lot of time to spare. I have seen a few people complaining about the turnaround times for Build It For You, so unfortunately they don't get a point. With Asteroom, they say most in 24 hours, and I'm gonna say 24 hours. Even though it's more than 12 hours, I'm gonna give it an honorable half a point because it's long but not that long. With iSpy 360, they also say within 24 hours Monday to Friday, so half a point. Same with Immoviewer, they say 24 hours. With Pivo Tour, I contacted them and they told me a 20 photo virtual tour would take 7 to 10 minutes to process. That is infinitely faster than all of these platforms. And they also said for a 200 photo tour, it would take around an hour and a half. I will need to shoot some more tours with Pivo Tour to verify this, but for now, I think it's safe to give Pivo Tour a big shining tick. The next feature is having a floor plan. Do these softwares use their inbuilt 3D technology to generate floor plans that are somewhat accurate? Well, with Matterport, firstly, they always have had a floor plan view, which essentially turns the Dollhouse into a bird's eye view where you can see a clear outline and top view perspective of the location. This is really cool. It is different, however, to a conventional floor plan, which would normally be black and white. However, you can actually get these made within Matterport. So it's a separate service. It costs $14.99 per floor plan, and they make that based off of your existing scans. So the answer would be yes. With Matterport, they offer 2 different types of floor plans. Metareal do make a floor plan with every tour they make for you, and it's a really good one. It's very accurate, I think around 98%. Asteroom do also have a great inbuilt floor plan, and this is something you will need to pay a little bit extra for. It's not that much, but that floor plan looks legit, and I'd say it's the best floor plan of any of these platforms. iSpy 360, again, yes, they do have a floor plan feature. This one's a bit basic, but it's still really good. Immoviewer do offer a floor plan. Here it is. It looks a bit more basic, and even though I do like it within this virtual tour, I don't know, it just kind of feels a bit amateur. I mean, any floor plan is better than no floor plan, but this one is a bit more on the basic side. Finally, with newcomer Pivo Tour, yes, they do offer a floor plan. Again, it's fairly basic, and it's also got a nice looking radar, which moves around perfectly in sync with the 360 photo movement. The next feature is, do they have a Dollhouse? And with Matterport, I think you know the answer. Yes, they absolutely do. It's one of their defining features, and it's an amazing one. There's no question Matterport popularized the Dollhouse, and every time you shoot a tour, assuming you shot and edited it correctly, it will look something like this. Overall, it's really fantastic. Sometimes it is a bit rough around the edges, so straight lines and walls aren't always straight, but for the most part, this is a really good Dollhouse. With Metareal, yes, it does have a Dollhouse, but something you probably noticed is that the walls here are dead straight. And the reason is they build this 3D model from scratch, room by room, and they mark out exactly where the walls are, where the corners are, and it creates a 3D object that it then places elements of the 360 photo around, making them perfectly straight. Whereas with Matterport, often there is no manual realignment of walls unless you do it yourself. So sometimes areas that weren't properly covered end up being those gray areas that don't have perfectly straight walls or lines. Now, if you turn this into a more complex shape, who knows if it would still be as clean cut, but overall, I think the Metareal Dollhouse is one of the best on this list. Asteroom do have a Dollhouse as well, and this is obviously a fantastic property, which is why it looks so good as a Dollhouse, and you can see that they use a similar technique for achieving such perfectly straight lines and walls. And that's because you're getting someone to build it for you, and they are actually spending the time to define all the corners of the rooms. It almost looks like a diorama you'd submit for a school project. It's really clean cut, really nice, and I rate Asteroom extremely highly for their dollhouse as well. iSpy 360 also have a dollhouse. It's pretty good. In fact, I'd say it's just as good as the others. Sometimes I notice things get projected against the wall in the wrong directions, and look at the shape of that bathtub. So there seems to be quite a few skewed elements in the iSpy 360 dollhouse. Overall, it's a pass, but if you're someone that strives for perfection, you're probably not going to get perfect projections within the iSpy 360 dollhouse on those walls, and especially in any rooms that only have one photo taken in them. And actually, now when I look back at Asteroom, I'm noticing the same thing as well. Next is Immoviewer, and this is their dollhouse. Okay, that's alright. It looks like half a dollhouse, half a floor plan. I'm going to be honest and say this doesn't look anywhere near as good as the others. Finally, there's newcomer Pivo Tour. Does it have a dollhouse? It sure does. Here it is. It's good. It's not great. They're a new company. They're just starting to work on their technology, so it's something, but I'd really only rate it half as good as Matterport or most of the other platforms other than Immoviewer. Next is 3D transitions, meaning when you move from one shot to the next, there's a parallax effect. You can see things moving to the left and right. And this is a really cool 3D effect that brings a space to life like no other transition can. And here I'm doing it in Matterport and it works extremely well. With Metareal, it also features this same 3D transition technology. With Asteroom, it doesn't have this feature. So while there are a few preset transitions you can choose, it's not utilizing that 3D geometry of the space to create the cool 3D transition effect. It's more of a fade and a little bit of a zoom. With iSpy 360, it's a zoom and then a cut. And no, that's not really the same thing at all. With Immoviewer, it's a zoom and a fade, so the answer is no. Finally, with Pivo Tour, it's kind of a 3D transition. So if you look closely, so look at this beam here. When I move this way, we didn't have that slow moving parallax effect that we had in the other softwares. However, they do mask this really well in having a zoom-like effect that does somewhat feel like a 3D transition, but it's just a more clever use of the zoom and fade. So I'm going to be generous and give Pivo Tour half a point for this. The next feature is having a fly-through effect or animations. What does this mean? Well, in Matterport, you'll notice down the bottom left-hand corner, if you hit play, you can set up an automatically playing walkthrough of the space. So without the viewer having to do anything, I literally just hit the play button and it's automatically taking me on a 3D tour of this space, utilizing the already built 3D mesh of the space to move around this location with a high level of lifelike movement. There's no doubt this is a big value add to have something like this, because it turns a virtual tour experience almost into a video-like experience where you don't need to interact with the virtual tour. And there are simpler versions of this where it's just a straight pan and then it cuts to the next photo. And yes, you can also set these up as well, so you can choose the angles that you want, the shots you want. Again, really valuable feature for a software like this where the focus is real estate. So Matterport obviously does have it, Metareal doesn't. While Asteroom doesn't have a fly-through or animations, it does have the ability to download a teaser video, which is a short 20-second video that is a similar concept. However, you have to download it from the settings menu. You can't start it automatically within the tour. While Matterport does have this, I'm still going to give Asteroom half a point because it's something. iSpy 360 also don't have this feature, but again, they've got something similar. And what it is a guided tour where you can pre-record a message.
Hello and welcome to Long Pond House.
So you could record a video narration and tell people what to do. So you could say, go ahead, click that button there, and the video up the top left plays while the viewer is navigating the tour. Again, it's not exactly the same thing, but it is a cool video feature, so I'm going to give it half a point. I can't see an option in Immoviewer to do this other than just turning auto rotate on and off. Pivo Tour also doesn't have an autoplay feature. Next feature on this list is a super handy one, and that is the measurement feature, where you simply just click a button. I'm going to measure from here to here, and that is 1.79 meters, and I believe it's 98% accurate because again, it's going off of the same technology that produces the floor plan for all of these platforms, where through the 3D geometry, it captures the depth of the space. Here, I'm using it in Matterport, but do the other platforms have it? Well, the answer is yes with Metareal. Again, I believe this is roughly 98% accurate. Asteroom doesn't have a measurement tool, but it does have an option to display measurements to the viewer. So if you enable it in the editor and enter your tripod height, now when you're in the tour, you see the measurements roughly laid out across the virtual tour. And while this isn't quite as good because it doesn't allow you the flexibility of measuring specific parts of the room, it's the next best thing, so I'm going to give it half a point. Same with iSpy 360, there doesn't seem to be a measurement tool, nor with Immoviewer. Finally, Pivo Tour also doesn't have a measurement feature. Next, does the software allow you to add a custom nadir? So if you wanted to add a logo down the bottom, can you do that? Well, short answer is you can with all of them other than Matterport and Pivo Tour. For me, this has always been one of the biggest flaws of Matterport, is literally the floor. But yeah, basically no matter which camera you use, it blurs out the tripod automatically. I do know that they're trying to speed up the workflow so you don't have to deal with the bottom of the shot and edit out the tripod manually. But that said, I really think they should give you an option to cover it up or edit the tripod out yourself so you can allow viewers to look down and see the actual floor there. But instead they force you to go with that blurred nadir. So Matterport does not get a point, neither does Pivo Tour, that also does the same thing, and right now they're adding their own logo on top of it, which isn't that distinctive. Next, do these platforms allow virtual staging? And what virtual staging is basically taking an empty house. So let's say there's a house that you want to display online, but you want to stage it with furniture to make it look like a livable space. And while you can technically achieve virtual staging without the need to use a virtual tour software, where it's done with a third-party provider and then you just upload the photos with staged furniture, I'm going to give a full point to the softwares that allow you to do it within their software or have third parties that easily integrate within their software. And those are Matterport, Asteroom, and iSpy 360. The other three get half a point because they do allow manual uploads of photos that have already been staged. The next feature, which again is a really important one, and that is how fast do the tours load. So not only when you load the tour for the first time, but then when you move between shots, how quickly does it process and buffer the images so you can get maximum image quality and a seamless experience for your viewer. With Matterport, as you can see, it's almost instant. The image quality is really good the whole time. You don't need to sit around waiting for it to load, and this makes navigating Matterport tours a fast and seamless experience. With Metareal, however, this is something I missed when I made my initial Metareal review. While it does have a lot of fantastic Matterport-like features, one feature it is severely lacking is fast loading. So when you go from shot to shot, the image starts as blurry and then takes a few seconds to load the full quality. Unfortunately, when you're moving around a virtual tour, you don't have a few seconds per shot to stop and wait for the quality to catch up. Hopefully they see this video and do whatever they can to fix it, but right now I consider this one of the few flaws that Metareal has. Now back to Asteroom, and for the most part I've experienced fast loading speeds with Asteroom. Maybe a few milliseconds slower than Matterport, but still fast overall, so I am going to give Asteroom a point for this. Now iSpy 360, and that's slow. You can see the initial load is okay quality, but to get the proper full resolution, it is taking between 2 and 4 seconds per photo. So unfortunately, I can't give iSpy 360 a point here. With Immoviewer, this is slow. You'll notice that there are big blocks everywhere as you look around your photos, and this is just a really ugly virtual tour experience. I'm sorry to say it, but clearly Immoviewer just haven't spent the same amount of time as the other platforms to keep their software up to date and highly responsive. So at this point, I'm finding very little upsides to using Immoviewer. Finally, there's Pivo Tour, and that was quick. Between each photo, I don't have to wait any longer than around a second to a second and a half for full quality to load. Next is an optional one, but it is a valuable feature regardless, and that is Google Street View upload. Can you upload to Street View within these virtual tour platforms? With Matterport, you can. With Metareal, you can. With Asteroom, iSpy 360, Immoviewer, and Pivo Tour, you can't. The next category is MLS integration. So which of these softwares integrate directly with MLS platforms like Realtor.com and Zillow? And the two that do are Matterport and Asteroom. The rest unfortunately don't and will require longer workarounds. Metareal, iSpy 360, and Immoviewer do provide unbranded links, which means you can upload them to these platforms. However, it's a longer workaround. So I'll give them half a point, and Pivo Tour gets nothing because it's still too new to have this feature. The final category, number 17 out of 17, and this one is added half as a joke, half serious, and it is it Matterport? And there's obviously only one of these platforms, that is Matterport, and the reason I chose to add this is because Matterport really is considered the gold standard when it comes to 3D 360 tours, and using an alternative to Matterport requires extra education for your client, and it also has slightly less credibility because it's not the most well-known name in 3D scanning. And it's not a make or break thing, and again, I'm half joking by adding this point, but at the same time, I just think it's a credibility point. You're either using Matterport or you're not. And when you're not, you really have to go the extra mile to make sure the end result are as good as what people know Matterport tours can be. And now for the final results. Drum roll, please. And here they are. Wow, that is a pretty big difference between these 6 platforms. Matterport got 15 out of 17, Metareal 10, Asteroom 12.5, iSpy 360 8.5, Immoviewer 8, and Pivo Tour 9 out of 17. Meaning the top 3 overall for features are Matterport, followed by Asteroom, followed by Metareal. So there's no question the undisputed winner for features is Matterport. It has almost everything you could want features wise from a 3D virtual tour software. Maybe there's some things I missed, and maybe there are other features that might be more important to you personally than the things I covered here. So if that is the case, then use your best judgment based on the things I did compare in this video and add whatever you want to your own personal list. All right, next let's compare pricing, and this is going to be a really big decision because when you're shooting virtual tours professionally and you own a business, this is going to be an ongoing cost, and these 3D and Matterport-like platforms are a lot higher in cost than most of the traditional virtual tour platforms. So it's really essential to consider what the long-term pricing will look like. When you're shooting a lot of tours for real estate, cost can outweigh features in the long run, which is why you need to make a sustainable choice that gives you enough features but also doesn't break the bank. Now, each of these softwares have their own unique and, yes, confusing pricing models, and there's also such a wide variety of needs from the photographer based on how many tours you shoot and how long you want to keep them online. So I followed the pricing models with all of them and did the calculations based on an average tour, or what I think an average tour would be, which would be a 20 photo 3D virtual tour with a Dollhouse that is built for you. So I took that average tour and calculated the monthly and yearly subscription fees on a 5, 20, and 50 tour subscription. The results were interesting. Okay, starting with Matterport, for 5 tours, it's obviously $9.99 a month. Times that by 12 months and it's $119.88. For 20 tours, you'd have to choose their professional plan at $69 a month, which is obviously $69 for the first month for 20 tours. And for 1 year, it would be $828. If you have 50 tours online, you'll have to choose the business package, which is $309 a month. Then times that by 12 and it's $3,708. And this comparison is completely in USD, by the way. At first, when I looked at this and then went to the more conventional virtual tour platforms, I thought, wow, what a ripoff. That's so much. But as much as I hate to admit it, it's actually not as bad as you might think. So moving on next to Metareal, and this is something I pushed heavily in my Metareal video, is that the prices are much lower overall than Matterport. on the surface. So looking at their pricing table, it says $0, $9.95, $39 Canadian per month. And those numbers seem good at first. The free version comes with 1 gigabyte of storage, which means the monthly cost for 5 tours would be $0 because you could fit 5 tours within 1 gigabyte. However, I mentioned at the start that these platforms have to build the tour for you. It's not an option to build it yourself. Even though you can with Metareal, most people don't want to take the time to learn the 3D modeling themselves. So on their free plan, it's $4 per pano. Times that by 20 photos in our example tour, and that's going to be $80. $80 times 5 tours is $400. That's $400 for one single month. It's also $400 for a full year. And that right there is the downside of paying per tour. Okay, let's move on to 20 tours. And I think you could get away with 5 gigabytes of storage for that, in which case you'd choose their $9.95 a month plan. So while the initial fee is going to be $9.95, don't forget, we have to get them to build it for us, which in this second package is now $3 a pano. So 3 times 20 times 20 is $1,200 plus $9.95, which is their monthly subscription fee. That's how much it costs for 20 tours for one single month. Those are Canadian dollars, by the way, so I'll have to do the conversion. So right now that would be about $962 US. Then for yearly, you would have still obviously paid that $1,200 up front, and then it's $9.95 for their subscription times 12 months equals $1,319 Canadian dollars. Moving on to 50 tours with Metareal, and this is where we'll have to go for the premium package since it has 50 gigabytes of storage. And with this package, to get them to build it for you, it's $2 a photo. So 2 times 20 times 50 equals 2,000 Canadian dollars plus $39 for the monthly subscription fee. Then for yearly, it's 2,000 times 39 times 12 equals 2,468 Canadian dollars, which is $1,963.19 US dollars right now. That's interesting. That's actually cheaper than Matterport. It's almost half. So yeah, I think Metareal does beat Matterport quite considerably if you're shooting a lot of tours and getting them to build it for you. Okay, next is Asteroom, and this is another pricing model yet again. So with Asteroom, it's free to host your tours. However, you will have to pay for the 3D Dollhouse, and they charge $10 US per tour, up to 10 panoramas, and $1 US per additional panorama. So for our 20 photo example tour, that's going to end up as $20 US. 20 times 5 tours is 100. And while hosting is free, it also has an expiry date of 6 months, and you have to pay another $12 US for another 180 days. So to get to a full year, we're going to have to buy hosting on those 5 tours, which means an additional $60. If you want a floor plan with that as well, it's going to be an extra $15. For 20 tours, we're going to take our original $20 that we got from the 20 photo tour with the Dollhouse and times that by 20, which is $400. To extend the hosting to a full year, it's going to be $12 times 20 photos, which is $240. 400 plus 240 is $640. If you did want to add a floor plan, which is an additional $15, that's going to end up as $300 more, meaning the total for 20 tours for 1 year is going to be $940 US. Finally, for 50 tours with Asteroom, the cost of the Dollhouse, $20 times 50 is $1,000. If you want a floor plan made, it's going to cost you $750 for 50 tours. Now for 1 year, we're going to have to extend that hosting. So 12 times 50 equals 600. So 1750 plus 600 equals 2,350 for a full year of hosting on Asteroom with a Dollhouse and a floor plan. Next is iSpy 360, and we've got another pricing model yet again. With iSpy 360, it's $15 per virtual tour with a 3D model and a floor plan, but that is only up to 15 photos. It's going to cost an additional $1 per 360 photo thereafter, meaning a 20 photo tour is going to cost $20. But then you need to combine that with a monthly subscription of $19.99. So for 5 tours, it's going to cost $20 times 5 equals 100, plus their $19.99 monthly subscription fee, which is $119.99. For yearly, we're going to take that $100 that it took to build those 5 tours and times the $19.99 subscription fee by 12 months, which in total is $339.88. For 20 tours, it's 20 times 20 again, which is 400, plus their $19.99 subscription fee, which is $419.99. Then times the subscription fee by 12 and it's $639.88. For 50 tours with iSpy 360, it's going to be $20 times 50 equals $1,000. For 1 month, that's going to cost you $1,019.99. For 1 year, it's going to be $1,239.88. And already looking back on the 4 platforms I've compared so far, that's the cheapest quite considerably. Next is Immoviewer. And for 5 tours, I'm going to follow their $69 a month plan and get the $34.95 floor plan with Dollhouse upsell. So $34.95 times 5 equals $174.75. Then with the $69 subscription fee, it's $243.75. For 5 tours, for 1 month. Matterport was $9.99. Then if we go yearly, it's a cheaper subscription overall, which is $499 a year. Then we have to pay $45 for a Dollhouse, so 45 times 5 is $224, meaning the total is $724 for 5 tours for 1 year. Okay, now for 50 tours, and keep in mind with all of these packages, I'm trying to get the lowest price possible based on the packages that they offer. So I determined that with Immoviewer, if you have 50 tours and you only want to host them for 1 month, it's best to go with their basic monthly subscription, which in total for 1 month would be $1,816.50. For 1 month. Matterport was $309. Now for yearly with Immoviewer, it's best to choose the $799 a year package, which lowers the price elsewhere. So $799 plus 50 tours times $34.95 for a floor plan and a Dollhouse is $2,546.50. And then there was one, and that is Pivo Tour. And yes, even though Pivo Tour was lacking a bit with features, pricing is its #1 selling point. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Pivo Tour right now at the time of launching is $99 US to access their software, and you get unlimited tours for unlimited time. What? Yes, you heard correctly. It doesn't matter how many tours you have or how long you want to keep them online. It's $99 across the board. So for 1 tour for 1 month or 1,000 tours for 1,000 months, it's $99 one-time payment. They did tell me that they do intend on charging a small fee for dollhouses shot using the LiDAR feature of iPhones and may add some costs down the road once their service improves. But right now at the time of releasing this video, those costs do not exist. That sounds too good to be true, and who knows, it could be too good to be true. And they're still a new company, so there's no way of knowing if this really will be a good long-term play for them or for their customers. But for $99, that's so low compared to all of the others, even if you were to take a gamble on it. If you didn't need all of the features of Matterport and the others, that means Pivo Tour absolutely annihilates the competition when it comes to price. So if keeping costs down is a really important thing to you, I would strongly suggest Pivo Tour for that reason. So my thoughts overall when it comes to pricing is that if you're someone that shoots less tours, I'm talking under 25 online at a time, it does seem like Matterport is the best option. Aside from Pivo Tour, obviously being the extremely low budget alternative. But Matterport is Matterport. Like I said before, if you could pay a little bit more to get Matterport, I just think you should. It comes with all those features. It actually looks a lot cheaper than most of these platforms when it comes to under 25 tours. Technically, iSpy 360 is a bit cheaper if you have 20 tours online at a time, but it's only really a $200 difference, and I think it's worth paying an extra $200 for Matterport, which is why I'd say if you're on a really low budget and you are considering Pivo Tour, think about it. If you only shoot 5 tours at a time and you could get away with the Matterport starter package, which is $9.99 a month, it's worth it for Matterport. You get all the features I talked about in the features section, and it's roughly the same price over the course of 1 year. And I think in general with all the other platforms aside from Pivo Tour and Matterport, their build it for you feature really doesn't work well with someone that is shooting only a few tours, because the lower cost of a subscription fee like $9.99 a month or even $69 a month for Matterport is still going to be lower than paying $20 to $70 per tour to have them make it for you. And again, if you really want to work around this, you can build these tours from scratch in platforms like Metareal. So while those are options, I just think if you're shooting a lot of volume, that workflow can become a bit unmanageable. Now let's talk about if you are someone that shoots a lot of tours. So 50 plus, you've got 50 tours online at a time and you're shooting every week, if not every second day. I still think paying more for Matterport overall is worth it because it's Matterport. But if you're more budget conscious, then all of these platforms are cheaper than Matterport if you plan on keeping your tours online for a while. If you're shooting that level of volume though, you're probably making more than enough money to cover the cost of Matterport or whichever of these platforms you choose. So that's another factor to keep in mind, because there's just a bit more of a demand overall and awareness in general of Matterport. And I think it would be easier to sell tours that are made with Matterport and therefore make more money than having to sell clients on a Matterport alternative, which yes, technically is nearly as good, but again, it's not Matterport. I also want to point out the fact that Matterport charges its subscription fee for having active spaces. And this means having tours online. So whether you're shooting with a giant Matterport camera or your phone or a 360 camera, the cost will remain the same if you upload then take down tours over and over. Whereas with the other platforms, you will always have to pay that build it for you cost. And generally with real estate, a listing goes up, it sells, then the tour is taken down, which is why shooting for real estate differs from other long-term virtual tour platforms where you might be making a tour of a small business or a big business and they want their tour to be on their website permanently. That's when you really need to make sure your long-term hosting fee doesn't become exorbitant. But with real estate, tours go up and they come down shortly thereafter, which is why I think these pricing models are actually workable. And relying too much on the whole build it for you pricing model will really only pay off if you're shooting a lot of volume, so 50 tours plus, and it should still equate to less than Matterport's business plan. It's a cost versus features thing, and I just think Matterport offers both of them to a really high level above its competitors, especially for anyone who has 25 tours online at a time or less. For more, I'd say it's up to you whether you want to pay more for the Matterport experience or pay less for the alternative experience. I do think Pivo Tour is really interesting though, and I'll be sure to make a follow-up video about that and test it over a long period of time to see whether it really is the definitive low budget Matterport alternative. I can't say it is yet, but it has all the potential in the world to be. So subscribe for that video coming soon. So now that we've compared features and pricing, which one wins? Matterport or its competitors? Well, I'm going to be honest. When I set out to make this video, I had a mission in the back of my head that I was going to prove that there are better alternatives to Matterport, that you don't need to pay these exorbitant amounts when other platforms do exactly the same. And then I actually took the time to look at them and research them in depth, and I realized Matterport was much better for features, and doing those price projections is cheaper in most situations. And I just don't have it in me to say that Matterport isn't the best. Because it is. There's no question that Matterport is a big company. It's the most well-known virtual tour platform out there, and they really are expanding and taking on new things, adding new tech to their service that is really creating a bright future for 3D capture and virtual tours and 360 creation in general. They're not perfect. They do have their fair share of flaws. They make some decisions sometimes that aren't always in their users' best interests. But for the most part, if you are a smart business owner and you use Matterport to your advantage, there's no reason why you should be taken advantage of by Matterport. So yeah, Matterport wins. That said, all of the platforms I explored in this video do get an honorable mention. They are all fantastic platforms. I've used them all. I like them all. I hope they stay around for a long time, and I hope they improve and give Matterport even more of a run for its money. And really quick, I want to address those few softwares that I didn't include in this video. If I were to rank them overall based on price and features, I'd say they end up about average with both. None of them would be in the top 1 or 2 of either category, but that said, they are still fantastic platforms, and I do recommend them for their specific use cases. So if you're into shooting real estate and you're looking for something that isn't Matterport but has other real estate friendly features, I would certainly suggest checking them out. I will also link them down below. As well as one more contender to watch out for in the future, and that is Giraffe 360. Yes, it's a silly name, but it may become a big up and coming platform. To learn more about it, check out their website as well as several in-depth videos that you'll find on the We Get Around Network forum. So whether you use Matterport or another software, if you want to take your virtual tour business seriously, you're going to have to come up with a solid business plan. Because a mistake I see all too often, especially with Matterport shooters, is they undercharge and over-deliver. Hopefully this isn't you, but if it is, then I hope you would let me be your mentor and show you step by step how to build a profitable virtual tour business from scratch, regardless of the software and camera you're using, as well as your skill level. It doesn't matter if you're beginner, intermediate, or pro, as long as you understand the business side of virtual tours, then you absolutely can live an awesome life as a virtual tour photographer and make money while you do it. So if this video saves you time and money, then there would be no better way to reinvest that money than in my virtual tour pro course, which is filled with my best shooting, editing, and business techniques to help take your virtual tour business to the next level. I'll also leave a coupon code down below for viewers of this video only. If you're interested in enrolling in the course, check that out. And that's it. Matterport versus its competitors. Which was your winner? Let me know down there. I do plan on making some more Matterport related content soon. As you can see, I got myself a Pro 2. And while owning one of these is totally unnecessary, I will be experimenting with the overall Matterport technology to figure out the best workflows and use cases for this amazing 3D 360 technology. And that's it. See you next time.